arcades, pizza, and a little bit of death. It's Five Nights at Freddy's.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast, the bargain basement of the monster podcasting airwaves, where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, as we try to stay alive, we're discussing Five Nights at Freddy's. Faye.
Yes, I'm back again.
Back again, and it's the first time I think I've covered like a currently out horror movie. Still in theaters. And I feel like I'm one of those young kids that knows what Five Nights at Freddy's is.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you brought me on for this because I'm probably not much better off than you, honestly, Alex, when it comes to like knowledge of it as a franchise.
That's okay. That's okay. I think that's what makes this work. I think if one of us actually knows something about it, then maybe we'll have credibility, and we don't want that. Now, when you were growing up, like during the heyday though of Five Nights at Freddy's, right?
Yeah,
like,
see,
this was
okay,
targeting your
it's
age.
really funny. It's really funny you say that because I was talking to my other friend who you met before back when I had a podcast in past tense, Crash, because he was more into this than I was, and I said, in my opinion, the cutoff is 98 and before. Don't care about FNAF. And 99 and onwards care about it. Because I'm 98 and I did not care about this when it was coming out, I have to be honest. I'm sure there's some stragglers with the 98 and 4 gen who were enough. But because I remember this starting when I was in high school and I just wasn't really into it.
Yeah, I tried to play it one time. And then I realized it's just nothing but jump scares. I was like, I think I'm done.
because funny enough, because I tried to dive back into it recently just to see like what I had missed, and it's a difficult game. Honestly, it's not an easy game.
It is,
and so it just kind of makes it tedious unless you have a big love for it. I feel like, or unless you're younger and you have the patience for that. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have time to master Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I agree. I was playing it. I was like, I don't really care to get good at this.
Yeah,
I see what's interesting about it. I love the aesthetic and the idea, but this just isn't my jam.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So it's kind of interesting. Now we're going to do a podcast about this video game movie that we both love video games, but we haven't played. We hadn't really devoted time to it. And
it's kind of funny. Go ahead.
No, go.
Because it's kind of funny because I feel like even though the time for this has long passed, I was more of the creepypasta generation. That original creepypasta generation of stuff like Slenderman and Jeff the Killer and stuff.
Okay.
That was more my gen. But everything with Slenderman is dead. That is not. Slenderman is never going to be rehabilitated, unfortunately.
No, he had too many bad things come out of poor quality to stay relevant.
Poor quality, and he's tied to a real attempted murder.
That's what makes it more exciting. That makes it a good combo, right? He's a horror thing, so if he's tied to murder, all right, that's money in the bank. Luckily, I don't know. Five Nights at Freddy's might be tied to some sort of attempted murder. Maybe. But anyway, yeah, interesting movie to go into, not knowing a lot, except for I know what the characters look like. I didn't know anything about the story at all. No idea about the story or anything like that.
So you had less knowledge than me, because I've done enough for a mix of osmosis and just YouTube videos of I'm kind of curious. To at least know a bit about it. So you do know less than me, but I'm not too far off from you. I just know the story.
Okay. Yeah, I looked up the story a little bit after the movie, which I think maybe says something about the movie that it made me want to look into it more.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe that speaks to the success of it a little bit, but I guess maybe I should get into it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. All right. Starting as a last-ditch effort after several video game failures, Scott Cawthon's viral horror game series Five Nights at Freddy's took the world by storm, especially little kids. Its popularity seemingly standing the test of the time with a strong box office. It feels like Blumhouse took a gamble on this series. Video game adaptations have had a penchant for being terrible, but that being said, we have seen more and more quality coming from them as of late. So, Faye, what I have to ask is, does this continue the upward game to live action trend, or does the quality here offend?
I think it's all right, if that makes sense. It's not terrible. It's not great either. It's just kind of in the middle for me. It's like there's things I enjoy here. There's things I think is pretty, eh, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think I'm more on the positive side than you. Like I said, I came out of the theater wanting to learn more about this because I really liked the animatronics. I like that they're all practical. I like that they look as good as they do. I don't think there's any CG or mostly any CG.
If there is, it's very minimal because it's a very practical movie, effects wise.
Which I really like about it, and I actually enjoyed the little bit of mystery with our main character and his long lost brother who was kidnapped, and I like the aspect of the guilt that never leaves from something like that. There's a lot there that I found interesting, and I wanted to learn more. And then there was certain moments where, like, the dreams start to happen. That he goes into work at Five Nights at Freddy's, or that's not the place. It's Freddy Fazbear's something, right?
Yeah, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. He goes in to work and he has these dreams of ghost children. And I'm like, oh God, not this trope. No! Like, I hate when in any movie where they have dreams about characters they've never met. But then it pivots and it's like actually a ghost story. Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like that, what felt like major complaint is actually not here. It just, I always thought the animatronic characters were running around on their own, but then to know that they're controlled by ghost children somehow made it much better.
That is so funny, Alex. That you went into it until you added that bit to it now.
Yeah. Now the logic works for me. But I like the gruesome nature of it. And I appreciate that they're tasteful enough to do it off screen as well. Because it could feel a little over the top. And I appreciate that, for me, the film never really quite feels that way. But I do want to go back to something you were saying, Faye. You said that this doesn't have characters. I'm interested to hear why you say that.
Well, I mean, I was being a little facetious there, but I feel like with the example of the main character, Mike, I think everyone else is just kind of whatever in this, and even Mike, I feel like is kind of underdeveloped in this one. It's not like awful or anything, but I feel like the character arcs are kind of muddled in this.
Yeah, I could see that a little bit. I really like Mike and his relationship with Abby. I think it took me far too long into the movie to realize that Abby was not his daughter; it was his sister.
Yeah, that was a little confusing for me too.
That was like a plot twist for me. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I was surprised when they revealed it too.
Yeah, I like it. It's an interesting dynamic to the family, and it again, it puts more of that stress on Mike's character having to raise Abby, who is appreciative but doesn't show it.
Yeah.
I think that is a very real kid thing, and I think it is interesting. I think where it does fall a little flat, and I do like Vanessa and her presence in the movie, but I don't like that. Oh, it feels her turn works, and I buy it, right? Because she's gonna turn for the kid, for Abby, against her dad. But I don't know. You know, she gets stabbed, she goes into a coma, and it's like, oh, like we just kind of dropped that character. We just kind of decided not to execute.
Yeah, and I feel like her stuff in general was probably last thing when I was very. I said it felt very rushed and weird to me.
It
In
is
general,
weird.
her character is very odd.
It is very odd. I guess it is explained a little bit by Steve Raglan being the killer. I wish the film had made it less obvious
Yeah.
that it's him.
Well, it's really funny because it's even more funny, the funny obvious because in when they were making this, they just announced who he actually was playing, the character from the games he was playing, the moment he got cast, which is really funny. And then in this, they save it like it's a reveal.
Yeah, they do. It's weird. Like they even put in the what's kind of cool is the opening of this, right? It tells the story of what happens to the kids in a very innocent looking pixel 8-bit type of style.
Yeah.
What's happening? I guess maybe it's more 16-bit, but I like that they do that. But the problem is during those opening credits, they put Matthew Lillard while it shows the guy, the creepy guy in the rabbit costume, right? It's like, why are you doing that? You're telling me who he is.
I can't really tell if they want it to be surprising or not, honestly.
I don't either. Like, it is far enough away from the beginning that I could see people forgetting he's even a character by the end of it.
Yeah.
And it being a bit of a surprise. But they just leaned into it a little too much. I think they should have left it at that moment where he sees Mike. He sees Mike's name, and then he doesn't say his last name because he recognizes him. I think that was cool, and they could have left it there. But they hit it way too many times for it to not, at least for me, feel obvious that he has something to do with it. Now, I didn't know there was ghost children, and that he was controlling these ghost children with pictures on a board. But I do like how creepy he feels when he shows up in that costume. I think that was pretty effective and tense, and the fact that he stabs his own daughter was pretty good. I don't know if he should have spent so much time with his mask off because he loses the scary factor.
That feels like one of those like rules they want. Like, you know where actors have that amount of FaceTime rule?
Yeah, yep, I know what you mean.
That feels like something that played in there.
I think that's what it has to be. I do think that FaceTime rule is pretty funny because it's always so obvious when it's applied to characters who typically have their face covered up. Now, in terms of like the overall story, I mean, I know you said you were a little familiar with it, but what did you think of the execution of like the overall, like the horror and the story?
I think it's surprisingly light on horror, honestly. It's not very scary. It's kind of interesting because we talked about how if it lives up to the game, and I think story-wise, I guess it captures it. Someone who's more familiar with the lore would be able to say yes or no. But I've heard from other people that pretty much basically captures it and condenses it. But gameplay-wise, I feel like it doesn't capture any of the gameplay. There's no real sense of isolation. There's no real desperation for daylight. There's no real like heavy focus on monitoring. Like the main character is just sleeping so there's kind of a lack of like danger or urgency.
Yeah, I think I do agree with that somewhat. You know, there is none of the. I like that they get the big screen set up with all the different monitors and all of that. In terms of the story, I really enjoyed it. Actually, I thought it was. I think it just did enough things differently that I found a lot to like. The creepy animatronics loving Abby, for example. Example was like really weird, and I thought it was going to be terrifying, and then it ended up not being for a while. But I just kept waiting for them to do something, which I think was some tension that I felt like the movie was needing at the time. And then I think they're creepy enough with their just appearing everywhere. It just I love the hallmark of the callbacks to the game, and if I'm remembering right, of them just showing the stage that they all stand on and just showing them disappear every now and then. I like those elements. Now, in terms of outright horror, I do agree. It is pretty lacking. It's only got a few moments that are really intense.
Yeah.
But when they are there, I find them quirky and kind of fun, like the cupcake, right, when it's in the refrigerator.
See, I guess.
Like
go good.
I kind of like it. I kind of like how gruesome they are killing these people. It kind of adds a little bit to it, but I do agree in a way that it's like it is like this PG-13. I like how gruesome the kills are because it does make it feel a little less PG-13 for a horror movie. But we do fair. At the end of the day know who the target audience is, right?
Yeah. So I guess my other big issue I have with it is I feel like the tone is very muddled and confused. I feel like I can't quite decide if it's like goofy and silly or like serious and sincere and scary, because it's like the big part of the movie is this idea of like of the main character getting over a horrific incident in his past, and really is quite disturbing. There's a big focus on the fact that these kids were killed by a serial killer, which I feel like the games don't really focus on quite as much as this does, at least from what I know. But then we also get just weird scenes like the unneeded MatPat cameo, the really goofy stuff with the aunt and the lawyer, the stuff with like with like they make the pillow for it. It's a very odd group of like totally inconsistent stuff.
I think you do make a good point there. I like the pillow fort because for me, I'm still waiting for those things to go haywire. That being said, you're right. The lawyer stuff for me was weird. Aunt Jane was a little too much. I didn't feel like she fit the movie. And then the other scene,
it kind of reminded me of like a '90s or 2000s kids movie, like something out of like Mike Myers Cat in the Hat or like Jumanji.
I could see that. I could see that. I don't like that Freddy Fazbear shows up at their house.
Yeah,
because I like the logic that he has to take a taxi. I'm also wondering how he paid for it.
Don't think about it.
yeah, it's the laughs, but I would say the Aunt Jane and the lawyer stuff were heavy-handed. I do like the scene where Max and her like crew, they go in and they all get killed. I do like that.
Yeah,
I like to know that these things can kill people and that they are a threat, right? That is nice. I think the opener is pretty good too. It feels like it's almost going to be a Saw movie at the very beginning.
Like for me, like the specific bit, like I think about it, and like, did you recognize the game series MatPat cameo?
Yeah,
or are you too old for that, Alex?
I knew who MatPat was because I had looked it up beforehand. But no, I didn't know I didn't know the Siri thing. What is the Siri thing?
Well, the game series thing is that's the series MatPat did, and that's where it's like, and when he because he's the waiter in the diner, and he's like, it's just a Siri, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're really doing it in the most obnoxious way possible. This cameo.
Yeah, but I heard that fans of it were like over the moon about this.
I guess, but I don't know.
This was
sometimes
their
fans are wrong.
Avengers Endgame like moment in the finale.
Avengers Endgame for Zoomers, for kids 15 and under.
Yeah, I liked it, but I am a little mixed on it for sure. I would
His
say
acting is terrible too. He's like really bad.
it is, yeah, and it's pretty over the top. Pretty over the top.
Because the taxi driver I found out was actually another big FNAF YouTuber, but I thought he was much better and much funnier.
I
I wouldn't have
agree.
known he wasn't just like a random minor actor.
I definitely agree. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think that's my two biggest detractors are some of the scenes that
Mm,
don't feel necessary. Aunt Jane, I don't feel like is necessary, and
mm,
I don't feel like the movie is maybe scary enough at times.
yeah.
I like the overall vibe. Honestly, I think it's the
Hmm.
backstory that I really like because it is so dark.
Mm,
I am glad that it happens off screen, and I just the idea of it is so interesting to me because it's so weird. We get these weird bird with a friggin' it has like a bib, doesn't it? Like
yeah.
these characters going around and being menacing. There's just something unique about it that I really do like, and I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird.
It's so funny to me how enamored you are with this concept.
I am. It's just so weird. Again, this is like somebody that's like just totally. Again, I thought these things were animatronics running afoul, not ghost children in robot
Yep.
bodies, in costumes running around.
It's wild, honestly.
It is.
Though speaking of that, I won't say. I also one thing I do like though. I think the set design is gorgeous in this movie.
Oh, it's so good. I was thinking that too. There's
Because also, and to a similar note, I also like how they don't overdo it being set in 2000. It's not like okay, to dunk on a movie that gets dunked on a lot, like Captain Marvel, to show that it's the 90s where they have her crash into a blockbuster.
yeah, right. It's the '90s. Didn't you know?
It's just subtle about it in this one, which I do like. I like it's not in your face that it's 2000 to let you know what year it is.
Yeah, I do like that. And like you said, the set design. There
Mm,
One thing I kept thinking while I was watching this is someone who's very unfamiliar with the game, again, you could tell that the people that made this really had an appreciation for the source material. And
mm.
yes, I know that Scott I think I said his name was Cawthorn earlier. Scott Cawthon. I
Yeah.
know that he was a writer on it and he probably had some sort of producing rights on it.
Mm,
But a lot of times we see this happen and it's
yeah.
clearly like,
See, the
oh,
kind of funny thing with Blumhouse was the reason why Blumhouse ends up getting it is they were the only one willing to put up with him. It's the funny thing. Every other studio thought he was too much of like he wanted to be too hands-on and they didn't want that, which I do think is kind of funny. Even though I think he probably should have handed writing over to someone else. But that's
well, there was three writers, I think, at least, maybe even more on it. So
mm,
I will say, I think I think the treatment for the material is very clearly love, right?
mm,
Mostly because the set design, like you said, but also because these characters are never CG, as far as I can tell.
yeah.
The fact that they were so dedicated to do this, they got these chunky animal anthropomorphic characters to walk around. Says a lot for Bloomhouse and just all the creators of this.
Yeah.
I think their appreciation for it helps the movie.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, Faye. Anything else before we get into our awards?
No, I think I've said about what I need to on this. I do not have enough info the to really add more than you. Honestly, ironically, I am too much more knowledgeable than you, which is kind of funny
It's very
on
funny.
this.
All right. So, MVM Plus this week. Faye, we talked a lot about horror movies and kind of where we started and what elements of horror and other things make them good, like children's movie, which I think we settled on all children's movies need to be absolutely horrifying. And, and we really focused on the horror, but of course, a little bit of superheroes snuck its way in at the very end of that conversation. We couldn't help ourselves. But yeah, so that was a great hour-long MVM Plus with you. And I guess now we're going to get into our awards. Faye, I know you said there's no characters. I'm being facetious, but who was your most compelling character here?
If I had to give it, I would give it to William Afton, even if he's not in it a lot. I think he's fun. I think Matthew Lillard does a pretty good job with him.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah, he's so good. Well, he's a Matthew Lillard is like this he's like this diamond in the rough, I think. But he's like made this weird notoriety, but this weird fame in horror movies for some reason, even though he's not in very many.
It's kind of funny. It's based almost entirely off of Scream, honestly, because he's just that.
It's like Scream and Scooby-Doo have propelled him. Yeah. And then 13 Ghosts or something? Which, how interesting. But I love Matthew Lillard.
But he's really embraced that too, though. Like, he loves horror. And
yeah, he seems like one of those actors that is like genuinely probably nice. Like, they hadn't let that fame go to their head. For me, pretty basic over here this week. I'm going to give it to Mike. Again, I really felt bad for him, like having to take these pills to relive this dream because he's hoping to remember the details of like even the license plate or anything else that he may have seen that day. I'm like, that would be a pretty traumatic experience, and to see what happened to his family afterwards, or to hear them talk about it, it's like, I get why you would want closure. So I really liked his character. Even if he could have shown a little more personality than just being tired and being worried about Abby. What about your, most memorable line award?
I hate to keep doing it, but I'm probably going to give it to William Afton's line of I always come back, because that's a line straight from the games, even if it doesn't quite have the fitting context it has in the games here. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. I think he did good. I think, there's some decent lines here. Nothing too stand out, though, for me. I did like the ongoing gag, though, between Raglan and Vanessa and Mike, where Raglan can't... He tells people that they have one thing to do, and then he lists two. Yeah. And even at the end of the film, he's to his daughter. He said, "You had one job: keep them in the dark, kill him if he gets too close." And and Vanessa says, "That's two." I thought that was pretty funny to bring that back around.
Sure.
Probably plays into the lack of horror in the movie, though. All right, Faye, what about your "Can't Believe That Acting" award?
Okay, I'll break it up. I actually said Josh Hartnett, right? That's who did Mike in this one, right?
Hutcherson.
Okay. I messed up the last name. I thought he was actually pretty good as Mike, even if the character I think was a little underdeveloped. I think he did a good job conveying that.
I agree. He's not an actor that I particularly think is great. I think he did a really good job with him in this. It was kind of nice to see him, and so I hadn't seen him in a long time, since like Hunger Games, probably. Not that.
Oh yeah, he was in those. What a funny.
I thought he was pretty not great in them too. But yeah, I think he did a good job. I'm gonna give this one to Piper Rubio as Abby.
Oh yeah, she was good for a child actress too.
Exactly, good for a child actress. That's always a great endorsement.
Pretty difficult, because what she has to do here is not the easiest for a kid to like convey. So she did pretty good. In all honesty, the acting is pretty good in this too. There's no one I could say who I'd say, oh, that wasn't great in terms of like main people.
I agree. That was something else I was kind of surprised by. I didn't expect much going into this movie. I don't know if I've stated that, but I really didn't. What about your? Oh, that's a good shot award.
Actually, I really like the shot where it's like a drone shot or a pan-up shot, one of those where they show the forest in one of the dream sequences. I think that's a cool
Oh,
shot.
it's got some cool forest shots.
Yeah.
I was surprised by some of the. I was surprised by a lot of this movie, but the camera work in it was pretty decent.
Yeah.
It was a pretty. If I remember, I mean, I already feel like I'm forgetting some of the movie, but if I remember right, it was a pretty dynamic camera. I felt like it was moving a lot or doing some
Yeah.
different things rather than just doing all these static shots, which I really appreciate. Mine's gonna be a boring one, but I really like the shot. Probably I think it's straight from the game, and it's just of the stage being empty on that screen. It always just immediately fills you with that sense of dread. And so I like that. I'm gonna give it to just that black and white static shot.
Fair.
What about your unique award, Faye? Anything?
My unique award, I would say, is best cupcake throw, and it's when that's pretty much her entire moveset in this, and I don't think she kills anyone once
No, no, definitely not.
herself. It's always the damn cupcake.
It's always the cupcake.
So I guess every single time she does that, it's full tied there.
It's funny you mentioned the cupcake because that's my award.
Oh, that's really funny.
Mine's a what the heck is that award? I had no idea about this cupcake. I knew nothing about it, and to see it show up in that fridge, I was like, "What is that?" Pretty funny to have this menacing cupcake. Again, it's another little layer of charm for me to just have something so stupid and commit to it so hard. All right, Faye, let's hear your ranking for the movie.
Well, I guess I'd put it around, damn, on a monster movie scale.
Yeah,
I guess this is around, I'd say, like,
Godzilla 54.
maybe like a giant claw.
If you had to do it on the air, for people who don't know what giant claw is, well, how about the Gabra? We'll do the Gabra, the Gamera, or the Godzilla tier, like that 3-tier system.
Between Gabra and Gamera.
Okay, all right. So, not one you would necessarily recommend to people?
Not really. I feel like you probably get more out of it if you really like the games. If you don't, you'll probably just be a little like, it was fine at best, if not actively disliking it.
Okay. I'm I'm a little higher on it. It's still a Gamera tier. I think there's elements of it for me that I think make it a little bit better than some horror movie, like your average horror movie. I like Mike's backstory and how that is throughout the movie. I like the weird setup for the animatronics, and I like the commitment to practical effects. Those elements really carry a lot of the movie for me, to a point that I'm still shocked at how much I enjoyed it. It is horror light for sure. You're gonna get a few jump scares. You're gonna get a little bit of gore, not much, if any, really. That's visible. Yeah. But I think this is I don't know. I could see people liking this, like me, that just know nothing about the franchise. They just have a rough idea of what the characters look like. But it is horror light, so if you're looking for something that's really going to scare you, this is not the movie for you. If you're looking for something that's going to have some scares and have some other interesting things, I think you might like this. So for me, that's why it's probably a Gamera tier.
That's fair.
Yeah. A nice little surprise for me. Faye, for my next movie, I found out that I've got one more week before I record with Eric, and we do we're going to be doing we're going to reviewed the first 3 episodes of Monarch.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to review the first 3 episodes of Monarch, and then we're going to do Godzilla -1. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of Godzilla. I'm so hyped. I'm so hyped.
You're going, finally.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing this next week. I've got to get that figured out, but I'm going to start getting on a more normal schedule, so that way I don't have to give people an episode last minute.
I get you.
But, so, no rhyme time this week. Again, I'm going to be flying by the seat of my pants. Faye, anything else?
No, that's about it. Pretty quiet on my end at the moment.
Okay, all right. Nothing to promote.
Not currently. Maybe next time on.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. And so, as always, thanks for listening to Monsters vs. Men. Leave us feedback on mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com, and we'll read your feedback on the show. You can also follow us and message us on Twitter and Instagram at mvm_pod. Become a bargain basemite at patreon.com/mvmpod and receive weekly bonus content, including special reviews, interviews, and host chats. And if you can't join at this time, a review or a share always helps. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, John Freeman, and Christopher Clavero. Special thanks to our wives, Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, our Instagram connector, and you, the listener, for listening. Until next time, don't spend 5 nights at Freddy's. Why would you do this to yourself? And try to stay alive. This place is terrifying. For low pay.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
I like that he sells the job by saying it doesn't pay much and it's got terrible hours.
I know, right?
I was like...
At least he was honest.
Yeah, he was like, you're describing every job after college for me.